The interview session of the decade. Yes, that is what we're discussing on my show today. And oh my, hey, this was the most explosive, revelation-filled, eye-opening interview I have ever witnessed in a very, very long time. And so I'm not calling it the interview of the decade for nothing. And I'm talking about the recent session featuring two Kenyans with history, Karua and a man called Cyrus Jirongo. Undoubtedly, moto kuliko pasi ya makaa. This session that lasted just under 1 hour, about 54 minutes, revealed what is really going on deep inside Azimio. This session revealed what Ruto is really up to and his henchmen. This interview revealed that indeed it is Kenya kwisha maneno, unless the people, you and I and others, act as quickly as possible. And of course it also revealed exactly what we have to do to save our country before it is too late. But first of all, I would really like to thank one of my subscribers, African Voice, for sharing this video. You know, many of us out there assume that Kumekucha Chris sees everything, that Kumekucha Chris can never miss anything. Well, I have to burst your bubble today. I sometimes miss a lot. Of course I try my best, but of course there is always the likelihood, sometimes very high, that I'll miss something very, very important. And therefore I really thank African Voice out there. And I take this opportunity to encourage all of you, please share before you assume that I've already seen it or that I already know. And I will really appreciate, and of course it will benefit all of us. Now, on to this interview of the decade. Maybe the interview of the century. No kidding. Okay? The biggest problem Kenya Kwanza have, the Kenya Kwanza regime have, are people like Karua and Cyrus Jirongo. These people are a huge problem. Why? Because they were there during the regime of Kenyatta 1, Jomo Kenyatta's regime. They were there during the Moi days, and they're still there now. The problem with that is that these people have a deep history and understanding of the country called Kenya. You will remember very clearly that during the campaign season, UDA were always telling crowds, don't give us history. We don't want history. Tell us what you're going to do for the people. And Karua repeated this and put it so eloquently in this interview. And she said the reason they were doing this is because the UDA people, the leaders you have leading Kenya today, have no history, have no track record. You know, you get somebody's track record by going back to their history. UDA told us, no, history is boring, don't go there, focus on the future. And some Kenyans swallowed it hook, line and sinker, especially Kenyans in the Mount Kenya region. And Karua, with a history and a track record, told us the following very explosive statement that will shock most Kenyans. She said that looking back to the Kenyatta 1 regime, Jomo Kenyatta in power, the Moi regime, the Kibaki regime, the Uhuru regime, and the current one, she has no doubt, she has no inkling of doubt whatsoever on her mind that the worst regime ever to rule the country called Kenya is the current UDA Kenya Kwanza. Clowns. But surprise, surprise, this was not an interview to bash the UDA government. It wasn't. This was not an interview to bash the Kalenjin community. No, it was nothing like that. It was a very sober view of the truth and the reality of the Kenya of today. Very sober. Indeed, it was made very clear that politicians in Kenya throughout the years have used hate campaigns to get into power. Yeah, which is hardly surprising, because you win an election by provoking the emotions of the people anywhere in the world. Now, the way emotions have been provoked in Kenya is by reminding people of tribes. In the past, we have had 41 versus 1 tribe. You remember that? We have had people calling governments Kalenjin regimes, Kikuyu regimes. But the truth, the naked truth, ile ukweli imetolewa surali, is the following. These governments have not been governments of the Kalenjin or the Kikuyu, not even the current one. They have been governments of an individual surrounded by his cronies. Yeah, and it just happens that that individual has surrounded himself with cronies from his own tribe. That is the story of Kenya. Because even today, our dear brothers and sisters in the Kalenjin nation are suffering just like the rest of us. They are suffering under the heavy burden of taxation, just like every other Kenyan. Only a few cronies who happen to be the same tribe as the president are enjoying. And therefore, it is not factual, it is not true to call this government a government of the Kalenjin nation, because it isn't. It can never be. Now stick with me, and very shortly, towards the tail end of this video, I will tell you exactly what is happening within Azimio currently. Confirmed, not rumors. From the horse's mouth, not rumors. Okay? And I'll analyze that comprehensively so that we totally understand what happened and what is happening within Azimio that has puzzled so many Kenyans. Now, one of the reasons why I'm calling this the interview of the decade is because there is no other interview session, talk show session, or anything like that over a very long time, maybe over the last 20 years, 30 years, that has put things down so clearly on the table, without any self-censorship, with no holds barred, as this interview did. And one of the things that came out clearly is exactly where Kenya is right now, and exactly what Kenyans must do to save themselves. Because nobody will come from out there to save Kenyans. Only Kenyans can rescue, liberate themselves, and nobody else. And I'll try my best to paraphrase and summarize exactly what was said concerning this. You cannot elect people who do not have any track record of obeying court orders, of being disciplined, of respecting the rule of law, and especially of being disciplined, of always doing the right thing. Kenyans who have no track record of that, you cannot elect them into office and expect them overnight to turn into what you want. Yeah, because that is not what they are. Okay? People will always be what they already are. Okay, and that's exactly what we have in Kenya today. Now, we already know that this government was not elected into office. Okay, the majority of Kenyan votes did not put this regime into office. We already know that. Yeah. However, according to Martha Karua, and I totally agree, without the help of Kenyan voters, at least some of them, this regime would never have been able even to rig themselves into office. How so? Well, it's very simple. Martha Karua, quoting the results hidden in the server, says that at least 5.6 million Kenyans voted for this regime. She compared the situation to 2002, when KANU was removed from power. The difference between 2022 and 2002 is that in 2002, Kenyans voted overwhelmingly for Kibaki and the National Rainbow Coalition. There were just too many Kenyans who turned up at the ballot and said no to KANU. So much so that it was impossible for KANU to rig themselves back in. However, in 2022, there were enough Kenyans for the Hustler Nation. There were enough Kenyans for the KK regime to enable rigging to take place. It's as simple as that. And so it comes back to the voter, you and I. And by the way, over 7 million Kenyans, registered voters, opted not to vote. And you know, when you opt not to vote, actually you voted. Because if even a sizable percentage of those 7 million who did not vote, had they voted, it would have been impossible for UDA and KK to rig themselves into power. It's as simple as that. Of course, assuming that a sizable amount of those 7 million would vote the same way a vast majority of Kenyans voted. That is for Raila Odinga and Martha Karua. Now, of course, I'm very much aware that there are those people who believe that in politics, the winner is the person who wins by whichever means. Because in this instance especially, Azimio had full support of the government that was in power at that time. And therefore, if it was rigging, they should have been in pole position to rig. And therefore, the fact that they were outsmarted illegally means they lost. Period. There are those who believe that. I am not one of those people. I'm one of those people who believe in a free, fair, and verifiable election as per our constitution, where nobody would fear to open the servers because they would know full well that they have won genuinely, fair and square. The only person who fears to open the server is the person who fears the contents that may be in that server, which of course would go contrary to what they're trying to convince the world, that they actually won an election when they didn't win. And so the question, what do Kenyans need to do? Very simple. Exercise their sovereign right, their sovereign power. And they don't need to wait for the next election to do this. And Martha Karua put it this way: if all Kenyans came out and said no, it would be no. Very simple. And all Kenyans would include leaders and the people, you and I. Because what this regime is doing is very clear, very obvious for everybody to see. People are enriching themselves. People are making money. It is a government which is about making money for a few individuals. That is what it's all about. In fact, one super fascinating point that came out was about the housing, affordable housing initiative, if you can call it that, of the KK government. The land these houses being built on is public land. The funds being used to build these houses are public funds. And therefore, in that environment, How come? How is it? How did we get into a situation where these houses are being sold? They are being sold to benefit who? Where is the money going? Very simple question. Very simple. And I believe it's a very simple concept to understand. Now, in an earlier video, we spoke on this channel about how a recent move, a gazette notice by this government, that gave back grabbed land to a man called Cyrus Jirongo and William Ruto, the current president, land which is part of the Nairobi sewage facility, handed back to Jirongo and Ruto. On this channel, we quoted press reports allegedly linked to Cyrus Jirongo being very happy about this development, and Jirongo saying in the report that he was happy that now he would proceed with his housing project under the affordable housing scheme. Okay? My sincere apologies. That report of mine was not factual. I have looked everywhere for confirmation that Cyrus Jirongo actually spoke those words that he was widely quoted as having spoken, and I have found zero evidence that he ever spoke them. And I kick myself because I should have realized that we live in propaganda times, that the current government is a propaganda perception government that manufactures news reports, that manufactures quotes from various leaders to benefit themselves. Because from this Martha Karua Cyrus Jirongo interview, it was very clear that Cyrus Jirongo has not changed. He has not crossed over to the Ruto side. Never ever. He has not changed his position on Ruto and Ruto's regime. No! That came out very clearly. And now it is very clear why that particular Kenya Gazette notice included 2 parcels of land instead of 1. Just think about it for a minute. Had that Kenya Gazette benefited only William Ruto, what would people have thought? However, by including Cyrus Jirongo, another Kenyan, it kind of legitimized that Gazette notice, giving back land that Uhuru had won back for the government, giving that land back to so-called private investors. I believe the correct position is that Bwana Cyrus Jirongo, Jelly, or using his companies, is not in a position right now to do that development, as was suggested in that fake press report, which was widely circulated, especially on social media, but also on mainstream media. Now on to Azimio. Hey. Now, until now, or until this interview, Martha Karua has never spoken openly about her position concerning the NADCO talks. Until now, she has never spoken her mind on this without any hindrance. Well, in this interview she did. According to Martha Karua, the NADCO report, currently in Parliament, achieved 0 for Kenyans. Absolutely 0. Zilch for Kenyans. And therefore, it is now clear, it is official, that there was a falling out between Martha Karua and other leaders within Azimio over the NADCO report. However, what happened is that it was not possible for Martha Karua to come out and openly oppose Azimio because she is still within Azimio. Okay? And so her personal position is that it achieved nothing. But she's within Azimio, She continues to support Azimio and contribute to Azimio as a very viable vehicle to help deliver Kenyans from the deep hole where the country is in right now as we speak. Martha Karua behaved precisely how a responsible leader who is completely selfless, not after her own selfish needs, and selfish ambition to get ahead in politics. As a leader to be depended on, and as a leader I personally have believed for a long time, that Kenyans should seriously consider for the presidency of the Republic of Kenya, Martha Karua behaved responsibly. But her position is very clear. And therefore we now know, by NADCO not addressing the most important issue, which was the cost of living, the very high cost of living brought about by UDA Kenya Kwanza policies. Now we know that the NADCO report brought serious cracks within the Azimio leadership. Okay? It has been rumored before, it has been insinuated before, but now we know it as a fact. Now, the many supporters of Raila Odinga, relax, tuliza boli. Because we also know why Raila was forced into the corner where he was forced, and the tactics he's using based on the options he was left with on the table after this NADCO fiasco. We need to understand that. And I believe this is a topic we have explored, dissected extensively on this channel. I refer you to my previous videos, and then you'll be up to speed in case you missed them. Bottom line, in such a situation politically, the options of one Martha Karua and the options of one Raila Odinga on the table are not and can never be the same. Let me just leave it at that. Now, I've put a link to that YouTube video in the description area below on this video, of that session, interview of the decade I've analyzed on my show today. And I strongly recommend that you find time to take it in. It'll make a lot of things very clear. Of course, a lot of what is discussed, we've been discussing on this channel. But it is always a good idea to get it elsewhere. Somebody else saying the same thing in their own words. I strongly recommend it. And I also strongly recommend a special offer available only for the next 48 hours strictly, of 2 highly sensitive special reports. You can see details on your screens right now. The Monster Ruto, Kenyans will never really know. And the second one, Unimaginable server secrets, that cover a lot of real life situations, real life events, real life political events, described in great detail, a majority of them not in the public domain. That will help you bring all this together very neatly so that you understand. And my special offer is that these 2 highly sensitive reports, the 2 of them are available for the price of only one, for only Kenya shillings 3,999. Now, of course, these highly sensitive reports were available only to very few people, and we did not reach the small audience target we had for both, and therefore I've decided for only 48 hours we will try to do that through this very special offer. Please take full advantage of it. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.